Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit Relationships and it's by user Blarg. What now? It was revealed that in the past, I, 27 female, stole two of my sister's 32 female boyfriends. Now her husband, 31 male, won't stop making passes at me. Woof, I will try to make this short, but please forgive me if I ramble. When I was in college, I had a rough patch with my sister, Gabrielle, and we were both very mean and vindictive to each other. It started with an inheritance that was rightfully hers, and my parents made her split with me. Long story short, she became resentful of having to share her money with me and kept track of every dollar I spent. She even reported to my parents anytime I went out drinking with friends or doing anything I should not be doing, just so she could say, "See, I told you we shouldn't have given her the money." I was 20 years old at the time and very resentful of having what felt like a PI intruding on my life and making my parents constantly yell at me. So I did the immature thing and kissed her boyfriend one Thanksgiving or Christmas, can't even remember. 2 years later, when my sister and my relationship was improved but not perfect, we got in a petty fight over her birthday party and I wound up flirting with her boyfriend as some kind of immature revenge. I remember the cringy faces my friends made at me for basically grinding with Gabrielle's boyfriend on the dance floor that night, and I'm still completely embarrassed by that memory even though it was 5 years ago. Fast forward to now. My sister and I have a good relationship as we are both adults with confidence, stable careers, etc. It helped that we did not see each other as much because I moved across the country for several years. I've since moved back to the city close to our hometown where my sister lives, and we have resumed weekly or bi-monthly dinners with the family on Saturdays or Sundays. 4 dinners ago, my mom was remarking on the state of our relationship now and commenting on how silly it was that we used to get on so poorly. My sister joked that I was a crappy human being then and I'm not anymore. Her husband, Nick, reacted strongly to crappy human being. So in defense of her word choice, my sister revealed the thing about me kissing her boyfriend once and then grinding on another years later. I was a bit uncomfortable, but we all laughed and went on with the rest of the night. The problem is that since that dinner, I noticed Nick starting to flirt with me. I can't even explain some of the moments because they were wordless, but I'll list the more blatant offenses below. 1. That night we were watching TV and he said I looked like a certain actress on TV who, in that scene, happened to be wearing a very revealing outfit. I felt a little weird, but figured I was the one being weird because he said it in front of my sister and she didn't flinch. 2. Next time, he came to hang out in my room while mom and sister cooked downstairs. He has done this once or twice before, but this time he kept looking for pictures of my college days because he wanted to see what I looked like back when I was seducing Gabrielle's boyfriends. 3. He caught me going through my favorite fitness Instagrams, lots of booty shots I'll admit, and asked if I was watching porn. I said no and he exaggerated a disappointed expression and said, "Let me know if you are." 4. He got too close to me in the kitchen and I said, "You don't have to stand so close." To which he responded, "Is it okay if I do?" I said I preferred that he didn't and he made a narrowed eye face at me as if to convey being skeptical. I flat out said, "Why are you being weird?" He didn't give me a real answer. I'm angry because he never really acted inappropriately around me before. We had a pretty good relationship and liked to talk about sports, movies, the like. I always felt he and my sister were a good match and that he was a good husband. But now it seems he heard a story and saw it as a green light to start messing with me. I feel he sees me as someone whose word against him would be invalid because of my history, and I want very badly to prove him wrong and just tell my sister and even my parents what is happening. But I don't feel that any of his offenses thus far sound big enough to report to someone about. At the same time, I don't want to keep going to dinner and just waiting to be harassed in some way or another so that I can point it out. I'm livid and I'm a little embarrassed and I don't know which way is the best way to approach the situation. I'm not comfortable telling anyone I know about this, so I appreciate any insight or advice. Well, Opie, if he changed his behavior after that story, then he's definitely up to something. I mean, why go through all of this annoying trouble to what? For what? Get a rise out of you? I think he's trying to do something here, which is absolutely not cool, of course. I would say next time he does some sort of like underhanded comment or something that makes you uncomfortable in a sexual way, just call him out loud. Something like, hey Nick, would you please cut it out with the sexual innuendo? It's making me really uncomfortable. And this all started with my sister telling you the story about me and her ex-boyfriends. Do you want something like, why are you doing this? I don't like it, you need to stop or we're gonna have a bigger problem. If you'll do that, he'll probably start squirming and justifying that it's not what it seems or blah blah blah, it's just a joke, whatever. You tell him, look, I don't care what it is, I don't like it, don't include me in it and stop it, or we're done. And if anybody like your parents or your sister ask what's going on, you tell them that ever since he heard that story about you and the exes, well, he's been acting weird and you don't like it. And then walk away and leave them to deal with it. Now, as a side note, the thing that started this whole thing, I agree with your sister. Your parents shouldn't have forced her to share an inheritance that was rightfully hers with you. I know it's a different part of the story, but I don't agree with it. And I also don't agree with the way you reacted. So far, like the only person I 100% like in your story is your sister. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. So what would you guys do if you were in OP's situation? Let me know in the comments section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they said. Bluetooth Magoo says, so the good news is that this post is time and date stamped. You might just want to edit it to include exact times and dates that he's done this so that you have a strong post history to show your family if and when you need it. The next thing I would do is approach your sister and say, I know Nick is just trying to defend you because he knows what I did was so wrong, but I was hoping that over time I've shown you that I'm not that person that I used to be. I'm so embarrassed by the way I behaved in the past, and him screwing with me to make fun of me is getting really uncomfortable for me. Could you please ask him to stop bringing it up with me and saying inappropriate things to me? I feel bad enough without being the butt of his jokes. When she inevitably asks what you're talking about, tell her about the things he's been doing. She'll probably get that he's being slimy without you having to spell it out for her. You get to address it without accusing him of anything other than having a crappy sense of humor. And Opie responds, damn, that's a good one. I would feel a lot more comfortable with handling it that way. Thank you. Deanie Bob says, quote, why are you being weird? End quote. Good for you for calling him out. Keep doing that. What do you mean by that? Why would you ask me that? That was weird and inappropriate. And Brave Pig says, it sounds like you two have some set in patterns and she may be predisposed to choosing really effing crappy partners. I would guess that this is not the first time that Nick has hit on someone Gabrielle knows. I feel bad for your sister, to be honest. You say you were mean and vindictive to each other, but I just see you getting away with a lot of really horrific behavior. Yeah, me too. 5 years is not that long. Have you dealt with all the crappy things that you and your parents did to your sister? Have you apologized, or have you just swept it under the rug and moved on? As for dealing with Nick in the moment, I would freeze him out and call him out loudly when he starts hitting on you. I would also have a one-on-one conversation with your sister about this. Expect some blowback, but honestly, it sounds like you could do with some confrontation of your issues. Leave your parents out of this. It sounds like they would side with you, and I don't think Gabrielle needs that right now. And Opie responds, we're by no means the people we were 7 to 10 years ago. I take full responsibility for the fact that I did horrible things by kissing one of her boyfriends and heavily flirting with another. I won't use age as an excuse. Well, you kinda did. But I know for damn sure I'd never do anything like that to my sister or anyone else now. The same goes for her and how she is past the way she used to treat me. I didn't mention details of what she did to me, but there was a lot of hurtful behavior on her part too. She never hit on any of my boyfriends, but she did awful things as well. Okay, I guess it's a tie? We have both apologized to each other. We had a year where we went on some therapy sessions together. I'm not sure what crappy things you think my parents did to my sister. If I had received the entirety of my grandmother's inheritance, they would have made me split it with her too. They have 2 daughters whom they love. They just want things fair. I think calling Nick out in the moment is a good idea. I'll have to wait for the right one, as he generally strikes when he's found me alone somewhere. Alright, so about the inheritance thing, OP, I'd be totally okay if your parents had asked her if she wanted to share it with you and not forced her to share it. Because if it would have been her decision, then it would have been fair, because she would have had a say on her personal property. Anyways, I'm focusing on the wrong thing here. So the community gave OP a lot of good information about how to deal with Nick, and it sounds like OP has an idea about what to do. So let's move on to the update to see what happened next and how this story ends. But of course, before that, you know that here's another one of my playlists for you to enjoy after the video. Now let's move on with the update. Figured I'd write this post for the people who asked for an update. Since writing my last post, I've been to one more dinner at my parents' house. I brought a family friend with me and asked her to keep an eye out for any funny behavior coming from Nick. I also hoped her presence would thwart any of his advances. I think a combination of my friend's presence and him being focused on cooking that night made it so that he didn't talk to me much, which was great. Of course, there was still a weird moment, and it happened when I was grabbing wine from my parents' fridge in the garage. I had no idea Nick followed me, so I yelped when he said something. My sister called from the kitchen to ask what happened, and I said Nick scared me because he came out of nowhere. He said, "There's a joke to be made about that." I gave him a weird look and he said, "Me coming out of nowhere." Clearly a sexual thing. I ignored it and booked it out of the garage before he could do anything else, and for the rest of the night, that was it. My friend and I left early, and I said goodbye to everyone from the door, pretending to be in a rush. 2 days after that dinner, I woke up to way more Instagram notifications than I was used to. I checked it out and it was one brand new account tagging me in a bunch of sex joke memes or sexual pictures, a lot of them being women wearing wet t-shirts. There was also one of a woman in an S&M looking Catwoman outfit, and I was tagged along with the words, "You in this." I immediately suspected Nick. I didn't know how to approach it, and it didn't tag me in anything beyond that burst of 10 photos, so I didn't do anything about it. I told some friends, but wasn't sure what else I could really do. Later that week, I got a Facebook friend request from someone I didn't know. I recently created a new Facebook profile for people I actually know, close friends and family I actually talk to and have seen recently. I don't get friend requests often anymore as I'm totally private and unsearchable, so this request was the only one that day and made me instantly suspicious. I thought it was some fake profile Nick made, but weirdly enough, I looked into this guy's profile and saw that he was a real person with real friends and a job. He is Googleable. I checked to see his high school or college to see if he was a friend of Nick's, and there were no schools listed, only current employment. Also, he lives in the Midwest in a state where I know no one. Most everyone I know lives on the East Coast. Anyway, I accepted the friend request, why? And asked how this guy knew and found me, and the first thing I got back from him was a very long explicit erotic story using my name as the main character. Considering how he messaged it to me right away, it was clearly written already and waiting for me. I took a screenshot, blocked him instantly, and have since regretted it because I wish I could look at his profile and find his connection to Nick. Honestly, I feel like there was no way this isn't all Nick, even if that wasn't his Facebook profile. I feel like it's someone he knows and he put him up to this. He and I have never talked about wet t-shirts or Catwoman, but I also don't know anyone else who would be interested in sexually harassing me right now except for him. So yeah, that's my update. I honestly have no idea if I have a move here at all, since everything happened mostly anonymous on social media. I've asked around about the Facebook guy and even asked Gabrielle, but no one knows that name. I have made excuses to avoid future dinners at my parents' home and will continue to do so. I'll see them on my own when Nick isn't around. The good thing is that there hasn't been any online harassment since then. Not sure how and where it'll happen, but I'm hoping it will include a slip-up that points me towards Nick. And that unfortunately is the last thing OP ever wrote, and I have to say, OP, if you do watch this video, I absolutely disagree with the way that you handled this. About the social media stuff, I agree, it's all anonymous and there's not much you can do there, so just block all of that and move on. The thing you need to do is call out Nick in person, so you avoiding meeting your parents because he's going to be around, that's not how you should do it. What happens if you never get the courage or the chance to call him out? Are you just gonna keep avoiding your family every time he shows up? He's your sister's husband. He's family. Sure, he acts like a creep, but he's still family, so he's not going anywhere unless your sister divorces him. Are you gonna wait for that to happen? So yeah, OP, I'm sorry, but this is a crappy update. I think it's the first time I've ever said that. Hopefully, you decide to do the right thing and confront him properly, and if you never do, well, so sorry. But at least I'm reading your story so that anybody who is in your situation doesn't follow your lead. Take care, OP, and thank you for sharing. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I definitely need a mood booster post to finish the video, so let's move on with that. This post is from the subreddit Malicious Compliance, and it's by user NoLanguage7256. How I managed my first micromanager. Back in 2010, I was working in a training management area within a government department. The job was fairly easy for me. Then, my original supervisor went on extended leave, so I got a new supervisor that we will call Agatha. Almost immediately, Agatha started to micromanage me, even though she didn't really know my job that well, or even half of what my role entailed. Now, I will say that I didn't particularly like Agatha as a person, but I tried to get along with her even when her management style started to show. In hindsight, I should have worked some internal politics to be removed from the area, but hey, no one said I was smart at 19. The section started to have some underlying tension until one day she called me into a meeting and, a long conversation cut short, said the magic words, "You need to do what I tell you to do, not what you think you need to do." She even followed it up by emailing me words to the same effect. Now, I did two things on the heels of that meeting. Firstly, I printed out the email to keep in my bag, drawer, pocket, and on my wall. Secondly, I started to do what she said and only what she said. At first, she would just tell me the jobs that needed completing, but she only got worse when she noticed the work wasn't getting done and started to tell me how to do things. Again, I complied and only did exactly what she told me and how she told me to do it. If she missed a step in her instructions, I would either skip it if I could move on or ask her to explain again as I couldn't figure it out. I was a damn good employee. I even went out of my way to start asking her what I should be doing and how after every task. If she weren't in the area, which was very common, I would just wait for her to come back. If she wanted to micromanage me, I would make her work for it. She was getting nothing done. We were getting further and further behind. This went on for about a month. The reputation of our section was tanking internally and externally. Enter Michelle, Agatha's boss. She noticed all my questions and the general drop in productivity, morale, and reputation. She pulled me aside and asked me what was happening, considering I am normally so competent and efficient and don't ask many questions about how to do the work. Small aside, Michelle was a fantastic boss and generally preferred a more hands-off approach when she could. She clearly was giving Agatha more rope to either make a ladder or something else. Okay, back to the story. I explained to Michelle how Agatha was managing me, and I was just trying to help her management style by leaning into it. I also showed her Agatha's email. At this point, I estimated I could get everything caught up in about a week without working any extended hours if things changed. Michelle, being a good boss, simply asked what it would take for me to go back to working the way I always have. I only asked not to be managed by Agatha anymore. I could have been much more insidious with my request, but I only wanted to be left alone to do my work. To my surprise, it worked. I immediately started reporting directly to Michelle. I got the work caught up in 3 days, surpassing even my own expectations. As for Agatha, she started to have her work examined a lot more closely, including her overall output, since I found out later she was trying to blame me for her low work output. It turned out that I was in fact the solution. Michelle ended up sharing Agatha's workload between the two of us, and we didn't really notice much difference. Agatha, however, did notice a difference, as she was shuffled into another area of the department, one with a lot less responsibility and a whole hell of a lot fewer promotion opportunities. I ran into Agatha again after I had moved around the country a few times. I ended up back in the same office but in a different section. Agatha was still in the same crappy position, same level too. Her personal reputation was so bad that only a handful of people would actually work with her. It felt good to know how stuck she was and presumably still is. Well, OP, she wanted to tell you exactly how to do things, and it just showed up how crappy her style was. And that's the big difference, again, between a leader, Michelle, and Agatha, just a boss. Thanks for sharing, OP. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out. So here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later. And also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.